Welcome to Marketing School 101, a busy online business owner's guide to truckloads of traffic, trust, and ultimately sales. Now, I say that in jest, but you're going to love today's episode. If you are somebody that doesn't want to spend 1,700,000 hours creating content on the internet just to get more people into your scalable offers so that you can do more of what you love. If that is what you want, this is for you. Ultimately, the old way of marketing is dead. The old way of marketing is a traditional sales funnel where people used to scoot right from the very top of it, having just found out about you, all the way through to the bottom to a sale very, very quickly. In a post-2020 world, times have changed and we need to adapt. And we need to move with the times. And so I'm going to share with you how to do exactly that with one very specific promise. By the end of this particular little training, you are going to know the exact process for driving the volume and quantity and quality of traffic required to sell your scalable offers. I'm talking about online courses, programs, masterminds, memberships, anything where you need a higher volume of traffic than, for example, if you were just a one-to-one creative service provider selling, say, 5 packages a year, it's going to be a completely different beast. So if that is you, you are in for a treat. Now, before I get into what I'm about to talk about, which is the marketing funnel and how it's changed and how you can use it to your advantage to sell your scalable offers in a way that actually feels sustainable, I do want to give you a little bit of like a marketing 101 foundations overview, because when it comes to marketing, there is 2 elements and both are equally important. At the same time, I often see that some business owners will have one and not the other and vice versa. And they'll be doing that one really, really well and wondering why they're still not getting traction. And so I want to remind you of the 2 core and key elements of marketing in Marketing 101 before we move on, just to make sure that you are cognizant of both of them as you start to consider how you might want to build out a marketing plan for this year or for whatever period you're currently in. So when it comes to marketing, there is ultimately 2 parts to marketing. Number 1 is message. Number 2 is distribution. Now, I'm not talking about it specifically today, but message, which is that part 1, is everything. I am talking about it over on Substack. I'm going to link the series where I am sharing how to put together a really killer message and how to position your message and your offers to speak to one specific person. So start there and come back to this, because one thing that I want to be really clear on is that distributing your marketing messages without having the right message in the first place is kind of akin to having a really killer microphone, but you just can't sing. Now, I'm Australian and I follow AFL. My family are a big AFL family. For anyone that is overseas, that is Australian rules football. And Meatloaf came for one of the grand finals. It was not a vibe. And I'm sure he had the best microphone in the world. He was singing to a huge stadium and, I would assume millions of people at home. And so he had a really big distribution, but it fell flat. And it fell flat because the message, or in this case, the singer, wasn't on point. So that is my analogy for why it's so important to have both pieces and why the marketing, the messaging, and the positioning piece is so key to this whole equation. So now that is out of the way, we can dive into what I want to talk about now, which is how to distribute a great marketing message and how to drive the volume and quality of traffic that you need to make your sales goal, whatever that is for your scalable offers. Now, like I said, once you have that messaging piece right, 87% of the work is donezo. And it is so important to work on getting that right, because there are lots of small business owners who feel swamped or overwhelmed or just feel invisible, even though they're doing all of the things and they're on all of the platforms and they're still sitting on like 126 followers and 26 email subscribers and donut sales most of the time. And they're like, what is going wrong? So if you implement everything that I'm about to talk to you about now, and it's still not working for you, definitely work on your messaging and making sure that you have that right. And like I said, I will link that Substack series so that you can dive in there. So once you have that in place, marketing is ultimately just effective distribution. And what I mean by that is this. It is how do you get an on-point message in front of enough of the right people to encourage them to trust you enough to buy from you? Now, the answer to that question has traditionally, and it still does, albeit in a different way, it has been answered by the marketing funnel. So, the marketing funnel is another kind of marketing 101 concept. I'll cover it quickly because you're probably aware of it to a certain extent, and then I'll show you how things are changing. So, the marketing funnel looks like a funnel. It is wide at the top, and it is basically wide at the top because what you're doing is pouring a heap of people into the top, and then you're funneling as many of them down as possible to eventually purchase from you. So the main steps are top of funnel, which is how you are attracting attention and getting new eyeballs into your ecosystem. Middle of funnel, which is how you're developing trust and rapport and authority, and basically everything that comes between that like handshake introduction when someone first comes across you, all the way through to that pointy end of just about being ready to purchase from you. And then bottom of funnel, which is how you're getting somebody to buy. Now, as you actually get started with your marketing, there are more pieces to the full marketing funnel. I'm going to keep it pretty top line here. But for example, after a sale, there is a concept called the bow tie marketing funnel, where it's the funnel goes down to a purchase. And then again, it kind of like extends out because a lot of the opportunity to maximize your revenue comes from serving your existing people. So the people that purchase from you deeply and for longer, etc. I'm not going to cover that now. I'm going to keep it pretty top line and talk about the marketing funnel as it relates to top, middle, and bottom of funnel. So where we are in this day and age, even though that sounds very old school to say, is that each piece of the marketing funnel, but particularly that middle of funnel, is more important than ever. So what do I mean by that? Specifically a few years ago, and a few short years ago, although in like internet years, it's like dog years. I'm really talking kind of post 2020 or pre 2020. There was scope to be a little bit more lax when it came to the marketing funnel. And that is because there were fewer players in the market. The market was less sophisticated. People had more trust, and they hadn't yet been burnt by the charlatans and the grifters that kind of come in looking for a fast buck when industry is on the up and up and it's growing and growing. And that was really the internet industry, pre 2020. So buyers weren't as sophisticated. They weren't as discerning. They were getting burnt because what was happening is that online business owners had the ability and the luxury kind of to rush people through a marketing funnel to expect, and actually they were getting sales on demand, and then kind of left everyone feeling overwhelmed and a little bit worse for wear at the end of it. I'm actually happy to say that those days are gone, and honestly, I think that is for the better. Now, effective marketing requires more of most things, but not effort. And I'll get to that in a moment. So it requires more people because conversion rates, being the percentage of people who see an offer that actually buy, are down. It requires more trust because people have been burnt.com and they actually want to know that you're the real deal. It requires more time because the buyer's cycle is getting longer and longer as people spend more time in what I call the middle of funnel squig, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. And overall, it requires more of a refined, elegant marketing funnel over the like wham, bam, direct response, give me your money approach of the pre-2020s. What it doesn't require, though, is more effort. And what I mean by that is that if you are cognizant of the way that people buy these days, which I actually think it is a much better way of buying, people are taking their time to consider whether an investment is right for them. They're taking the time to make sure that the person that they're purchasing from is the right person for them. It requires a considered, streamlined marketing system that ultimately feels good for you, that feels good for them, and that feeds your bottom line. And I pretty much call that a win, win, win. Now, even though that is the best way to market at the moment, most people still aren't doing it. They are bringing out an offer, they're spending ages perfecting their offer, then they're haphazardly posting all over social media to try and get someone to purchase it. And it feels erratic. It has this like real erratic energy to it. And I can see people that do it. And the founder, when things aren't working for them, they get increasingly scattered when their efforts aren't paying immediately off. And they usually end up either getting into this energy of anyone that is a parent and has seen Inside Out 3, there's a character on there called Anxiety. And anxiety, is just like all over the place and getting faster and faster. So they kind of get into that zone, or they just kind of give up. Now, the mistake that they're making is that they are assuming that once they have an offer, they just need to, start posting on social media, and they need to start at kind of that top of that marketing funnel, but without really any idea of how many people they need at the top of the marketing funnel, or what they're doing that for, or what the missing link is that's going to get them down to buy. And actually, the best approach is to do things backwards. So what I want to share with you is what I think is the best way to build out a marketing system to sell your scalable offers and to drive the volume and quality of traffic required to do that right now. So step number 1 is to start with the bottom of funnel. So marketing as a business is ultimately in service of sales, right? We're not just creating content and doing marketing for fun. And so it doesn't actually make sense to do anything other than to work backwards from the number of sales that we ultimately want to make. So here is how I recommend that you do it and where you want to start when it comes to putting together a marketing system for your business to sell your scalable offers. So firstly, you want to think about your revenue goal. How many units of your offer do you need to sell in order to achieve that revenue goal? Now, keep in mind that the lower the price of your offer, the more units you're going to need to sell. Now, this matters very much because it will ultimately dictate how you spend your days. The pricing of your offer will dictate how many units you need to sell, which will dictate how you spend your days. How so, I hear you ask? So if you decide that you are going to price low and you focus on a lower ticket offer or business model, that will equal a marketing-focused business because you are going to need more eyeballs into your marketing funnel in order to generate the volume of sales you need in order to reach your revenue goal. Now, if you contrast that to a higher ticket offer or business model, it's going to mean less marketing because you don't need as many people in your top of funnel. But the flip side of that is that it's going to mean more delivery. So you want to pick your poison when it comes to how you decide to price your offer at that pointy end, at that bottom of funnel wisely, because it will very much impact how much or how little marketing you need to do. So at that bottom of funnel, once you're clear on your revenue goal and the units that you need to sell, then you want to think about what your sales system is. So how do you intend to sell your offer? So sales is achieved through campaigns. Campaigns are concentrated activities that are designed to take people through what is called the customer journey to purchase from you. And so you want to think about when are you going to be running campaigns throughout your year? You don't just want to put something up on your website and hope that somebody buys. You then want to map out the flavor of the campaign. So, for example, let's say it's coming up to Valentine's Day. You might want to have like a campaign that is really talking to that Valentine's Day angle, right? And getting really creative with it. And then what is the funnel that you're going to be using to sell? So you don't just, for example, want to put something up on your website. You want to have a sales process that you take people through. So for example, if you have a low ticket offer, that sales process might just be sending them to a sales page where there is some information about the offer and they can purchase. If it's more of a mid-ticket offer, it might be something that requires a little bit more kind of nurturing. And so, it might be a webinar funnel where somebody comes to a live masterclass or webinar, and then they have the opportunity to purchase. Or if it's something that's a higher ticket offer, it might be an application funnel where there is an application process so that you can qualify that your people are the right people. So you want to get clear on your revenue goal. You want to get clear on your number of sales required, the sales system that you're going to use to achieve it. And then finally, how many clicks you need to that campaign in order to reach your sales goals. Now, ultimately, that is a simple math equation, even though I know that the math side can feel overwhelming. It really is as simple as how many sales? So what is the number of sales I need? What is the percentage of people that buy? And then you just divide those two numbers. So if you know that about 10% of people that go into your sales system purchase, it is going to be, and you have like a goal of 10 sales, or 100 sales, it is 100 divided by 10 or 0.1, right? So 10%. And so that will then give you the number of eyeballs that you need over to whatever sales system you're running to purchase from you. But, and herein lies a very big change to the way that I recommend setting up a marketing funnel right now. The answer to the one variable in that equation, which is the percentage of people that are going to buy from you, there's one key variable, which is the percentage of people that are going to buy from you. But there are two variables that will ultimately influence that number. So the first, and this is pretty obvious, I hope, is how good your offer is and how effective your sales system is. So, have you got an irresistible offer? Have you got a sales system that actually does its job to convert people into sales? Now, that was traditionally really the only thing that you would look at to work out what that percentage of people that buy might be. But, and this is where I think that this second variable is actually much more important these days, is how warmed up the person that is clicking over to the sales system in the first place actually is. And this one is so important because we are living in a world where volume is getting more and more expensive. It is getting more difficult to get on the one hand. People are less trusting on the other hand. And so the idea that you can just send a whole heap of eyeballs, people, to a sales system, for example, a sales page, and expect them to buy without what happens before they get to that point doing a lot of the heavy lifting is ill-considered, in my opinion. I think the better approach at the moment is to focus on what happens before they even reach that sales system. Meaning that your top of funnel, and particularly and most importantly in my opinion, although both of them are very important, your middle of funnel strategy, which is how you're developing trust and rapport and all of the touch points they have before they get to that sales system, needs to be so effective that they're coming to that sales campaign already kind of sold. If you do that, it is going to mean that you can increase the percentage of people that are likely to purchase from you. You can decrease your marketing costs because you're not going to have this okay, let's just get a heap of people to this page and maybe a tiny fraction will purchase from you. And you won't need the volume that you would otherwise need. And therefore, you're not doing so much of the heavy lifting, or you're not requiring that your sales system do all of the hard work to get people to purchase. The system, the marketing system that you're setting up to get people to the point that they're even at the top of that sales system, being the sales page, is actually doing all of the heavy lifting. So that is bottom of funnel. So remember, I've said that we want to build all of this out backwards. So we want to be clear on what is our revenue goal, what is the number of sales that we need, and then what is the volume of traffic that we need to the top of that sales system. Now, my point here is that the best way to positively influence that particular number is to have more people that are landing there already sold on your offer and you and what you do, so that you don't need as many of them and so that they're more likely to purchase. And this is where the second step in the build it backwards strategy really comes in. So we've started with the bottom of funnel. Now we're moving up to building out your middle of funnel ecosystem. Now, keep in mind that you're actually going to do this before you start to frantically post on social and do all of the things that people that have a brand new offer do when they decide that they need to sell it. We actually want to have our home set up and staged before we invite people in. So I liken your middle of funnel to that middle bit in between somebody being introduced to you for the very first time and marrying them. So that introduction is top of funnel. Marriage is the purchase. And the key is to spend some time in that like middle of funnel and not just try to rush people through it. Especially at the moment, this middle of funnel period is so important. We are in a trust desert at the moment. And so we need to act accordingly. So these days, rather than thinking about the middle of funnel as one step in the process, I like to think of it as more of a squig. And so what I mean by that is that rather than it being like a straight line in between your top of funnel where that people come across to you and your bottom of funnel where people purchase, there is like a whole heap of touch points and interactions that might be a little bit chaotic and may not make sense, but you need to have like an ecosystem where people can be developing trust and rapport and getting to know you. So once upon a time where it might have been okay to simply like pour people into your top of funnel, then set up like a 5-part email sequence as a middle of funnel and then expect them to buy. These days, people are kind of scoping you out in this middle of funnel. They need multiple touch points in order to feel ready to purchase from you. And they need longer form touch points. I have read that at the moment, people need like 7 hours with you in order to feel ready to purchase from you. And so this can come from a lot of different things. It could come from, and I do recommend this, long form content. For example, for me, I have this podcast. I also have a Substack. I write newsletters, for example. I also recommend that you have a system set up so that you're doing a lot of the hard work once when it comes to this middle of funnel ecosystem. And that's working for you over and over again. So for example, for me, as soon as somebody touches my middle of funnel, which means that they have found out about me somewhere and they've downloaded, say, a lead magnet, they then hit with this ecosystem, which is like a big newsletter sequence, which is very strategically put together. They start getting social media remarketing ads so that I feel like, a famous person, but, a legend in their lunchbox, but just for them because they are the only people that are receiving that particular content. And I have a content strategy that really focuses on thought leadership and not just churning out traditional how-to content, but really leading the thought and having a unique perspective. So when you are setting this up, you don't need all of them to start off with, but I do recommend having one of them. And then really the focus of your marketing should be on fleshing out this middle of funnel more and more as you go. So for now, I'm going to, in a little bit later on, not in this particular piece, but later on, I'm going to go through exactly what I recommend in terms of the setup for your middle of funnel. For now, I'll just keep it pretty top level and as I'm going through each of the pieces of the marketing funnel. And just say like the more robust and squiggly the opportunity that people have for multiple touch points with you in that middle of funnel, the more they're going to develop trust and rapport. And by the time they actually get to the point that you make a sales offer in a sales campaign, they're going to be so much more ready to purchase from you. And so this is where I really think that we need to like pad this out more than ever. So step number 3, now that we have gotten clarity on our bottom of funnel, we've got a revenue goal, the number of sales, we kind of have an idea of the number of people that we might need to drive over to a sales campaign. We have got kind of our staging for our house sorted. We're, ready to welcome our guests and not coming into an empty house. We've got some ways to actually warm people up and touch points. Then and only then will you focus on top of funnel. So once you have like both of those things sorted, you can get the parties started, so to speak. And the simplest way to do this is to basically find out where your ideal customers and clients are and go to them. Go to them with something that is a super valuable free offer that as soon as they download it, they'll then enter your middle of funnel squig. So there are two elements of that. I have made it very simplistic, but really it is actually quite simple and we tend to overcomplicate these things. So number one is that you need a super valuable offer. So this is a lead magnet in traditional terms, but that is so dusty and fusty. There are so many different opportunities at the moment to come up with these lead magnets that are actually really, really valuable. So the key kind of thing that I think about when I put together a lead magnet is like, is this something that I would want to download? Like, is this really fun and different? So for example, one thing that I was trialing on my social media accounts was putting together behind the scenes Google Docs. No, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but my gosh, I would love to have that sort of insight from another business owner. And so those went gangbusters. You could just be filming a Loom video where you're giving a behind the scenes of something or walking through something that's super valuable. You want to make sure that you're providing something that is so crazy valuable in and of itself that you can't believe that you're giving it away, but also that you're not cannibalizing your main offer. So there's two things here. There's three things. You want to make sure that it's crazy, super valuable. You want to make sure that it is bringing in the right people and it is very, very closely aligned to the subject matter of what it is that you ultimately want to sell. But then number three, that it's a really specific and defined result that you're giving them inside of that lead magnet that leaves a gap, that leaves them ready for whatever your core offer is. You don't want to create something that's super valuable and free and then people are like, oh, great. I don't actually need whatever the main offer is. You actually want to increase the appetite, not decrease it. So that is the art and science of the free offer. The second somebody downloads that free offer, they then move into your middle of funnel. I call it a squig. But you move into that ecosystem where it's like, okay, well, you're kind of everywhere just for that person. They're getting your newsletter because when they downloaded that lead magnet, you got their email address. They're getting automatically sent out social media posts because you have put them into a little bucket that they do receive those for like $3 a day for you. They're getting your consistent and strategic content system that's aligning with your campaign plans. And so once you have that all in place, then and only then are you finally ready to start pouring people into that top of funnel. So that is where you are going to where people that you want to buy your offer are, and you're bringing them into your ecosystem. Now, ultimately, there is 3 ways that you can do that. It is not rocket science. Number 1, you can build. So you can pick a social channel and you can create growth-focused top-of-funnel content. And when I say that, there is strategic top-of-funnel style content that is going to attract new people and bring them in. It is generally the more clickbaity types of content. And I don't even say clickbaity in a negative way. What I mean is it is a very clear hook that people are going to see it and say, even though I don't know this person from a bar of soap, this is interesting content. And I'm going to, for example, if it's an Instagram reel on Instagram, I'm going to keep watching that and potentially I might even follow that person. And then I might see, a comment, a word in order to get the lead magnet, or I might see in their bio, they're talking about that lead magnet and then they enter the middle of funnel. So that is building. Number 2 is borrowing. So it is networking with other people who have your audience, doing it in a very defined way. So I do this with a spreadsheet. I literally have a spreadsheet of the people that I want to develop a relationship with. And I do that in a really natural way. But they are people that would be great opportunities to partner with in the future and essentially borrow in a win-win way each other's audiences. And the third way is to buy traffic. So you're just buying ads to put your free offer in front of the right people. So that is the essence of a top of funnel strategy. And you don't want to haphazardly do all of the things. I ultimately recommend that you choose one top of funnel strategy and you track the action that you're taking. So for example, let's say it's buying traffic, how much are you spending on ads? And then what the outcome is. How many email subscribers am I getting? Or let's say that it's Instagram. So how many posts am I making? And then what is the reach and engagement of that? And how many subscribers am I getting? So you want to know that you're actually taking the action to grow your marketing and that it's having the desired effect. Now, the key with your top of funnel is knowing how many people you actually need in your top of funnel to filter down to eventually achieve whatever that sales goal is. So in other words, how many people do you need in your wider audience, your email list primarily, but also other channels, that you can command over to your offers every time you run a sales campaign? Now, I call this number your click power. It isn't an exact art or science. It will depend on your offer. It depends on how effective your middle of funnel strategy is. It depends on, how much you are promoting inside of that campaign period. But it is how many clicks you can drive over to a sales campaign when the time comes. Now, you won't actually know your click power until the first time you run a campaign. So it is a little bit of like a chicken and an egg situation. The good news is that action creates clarity, and by running a sales campaign, you will very quickly find out what your click power is, and then you can focus on the actions you need to take to improve it. So that is a summary of where I feel we're at when it comes to the traditional marketing funnel these days, and the changes that I feel are really important to implement in order to continue to drive the volume and quality of traffic that you need to sell your scalable offers. So even though, yes, there still is a top of funnel, a middle of funnel, and a bottom of funnel, I strongly recommend building it backwards, getting clarity firstly on your messaging, your offer, your campaign, and your funnel, and how many clicks you need to that in order to reach your goals. And really starting to beef out over time, not immediately, but your middle of funnel squig, so that you have multiple touch points. Aim for 7 hours of time with you. Audit, what do you have at the moment? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a blog? Do you have something where people can spend time with you so that they can get to know you, to trust you, and to develop rapport with you before they ever end up in that bottom of funnel section? And then number 3, top of funnel, are you consistently providing value to either build, borrow, or buy the traffic that you need to start to get people in and through your funnel so that you can achieve that, click goal that you have when you run campaigns? So this build it backwards approach to marketing, when you start with the bottom of funnel, then you build out that robust middle of funnel, then you fill it top of funnel, is achieved using, and I cover this inside of my traffic playbook course, 4 C's. I want you to think of it in the context of 4 C's. So number 1, campaign, knowing what style of campaign you're going to run and then how many people you need for that. Number 2, clicks, being how many people you need for the campaign in order to reach your goal. Number 3, content. So building out a middle of funnel system where you're doing a lot of hard work once. So a lot of that is actually going out automatically, but you're also creating a strategic content plan. And number 4, contacts. So you are growing your contacts. Yes, your social media channels, but I recommend one social media channel to start. And more specifically, you are growing your email list so that you can rely on that and lean on that when it comes to getting to the pointy end and you're running a campaign. You've already got people that you can go out to and promote that campaign to. If you are listening to this in real time, right now, Traffic Playbook is actually 70% off. So that is the full system for achieving this. I'm going to leave the link here so that you can get access to that and you can get access to the code too. I'm actually going to go into more detail separately, so separate to this particular episode, on the middle of funnel and also the top of funnel, because they do require their own individual episodes where I can really lay out what I'm doing for middle of funnel, what I recommend that you do, how top of funnel is changed, and how to really make the most of it. But in this episode, I really wanted to give you kind of how things have changed and how it all works together and what to do differently right now to still generate the volume and quality of traffic to drive, to your scalable offers and to still achieve your revenue goals. Now, I will just say at the end of this particular episode, for anyone that has gotten to the end that is interested in setting this up inside of their own business, have a course that covers exactly this. Depending on when you go to the page, if you are listening in real time, there is a very, very significant discount on that particular offer going at the moment. I'm going to leave the link to that so that you can check it out. But just to recap on what it includes very, very quickly. Number one, everything that you need to put together a traffic recipe for a campaign. So, if you are running a live launch, how should you structure your marketing? If you are running an evergreen funnel, how should you structure your marketing? If you are running a promotion, how should you structure your marketing? Then how to actually calculate your click power, even if you don't know it from previous campaigns. I'll give you the calculators to do that. How to implement a full content system for becoming a legend in your own lunchbox. So what I mean by that is like appearing everywhere for your prospect. How to develop your thought leadership, put together a, really comprehensive full 10-day newsletter sequence to warm people up. How to put together social media remarketing posts and track people around the internet with them. And how to put together a full strategic content plan that goes through all of the different phases of a promotion to prime people to buy from you. And then finally, a contact growth system. So how to put together a lead magnet system, an audience growth system, all of the templates you need to do that, and all of the contact growth strategies, calculators and templates to develop a top of funnel system as well. So I hope that you have gotten a whole heap of value from today's episode. Definitely keep listening in if you would like to hear me go deeper on the middle of funnel and the top of funnel, how I do it, how I recommend you do it. And if you want the complete done for you system, definitely check out Traffic Playbook as well. All right, guys, I will leave it there. Thank you so much as always, and I'll see you in the next episode.